My name is Hannah Miller. I'm 35 years old and I live and work in San Francisco. To everyone else, I was the ideal eldest daughter, calm, responsible, accomplished. But they didn't know that I had once died in silence. I died on an operating table for 89 seconds. While that was happening, my whole family was posing for photos in Beverly Hills, where my sister Abigail was being honored as Inspirational Person of the Year. No one came to the hospital. No messages. No calls. When I woke up after a 5-hour surgery, the first thing I saw was not my mother's face, nor a caring word from my father, but an email with the hospital bill, sent to me by mistake. And under the payment signature, my sister's name, as my legal medical guardian. I lay there, my body full of incision marks, reading and rereading the paper my sister had sent from the gala to prepare in case I didn't make it. Have you ever felt like you were only a backup tool for the people you call family? Have you ever almost died, only to realize you'd never really been allowed to live? If this story touches you somewhere, please leave a comment, hit like, and follow my channel. Because right after the moment I stopped breathing, everything in my life began to change. And I'll tell you the rest. From the moment I came back from death, I am the oldest daughter in a family of 3 sisters. For the past 10 years, the role they assigned me without asking was the one who kept everything from falling apart. When my father went bankrupt when I was 25, my mother didn't shed a tear and my sister didn't panic. Both of them turned to look at me, as if it were assumed I would figure it out. And I did figure it out. I gave up my plan to pursue a master's degree, took a job as an office assistant, and gradually rose to become the director of operations at a medical tech company in San Francisco. I sent money home every month, helped pay off my father's debts, covered tuition for my youngest sister Natalie, and of course, always kept a safety fund ready for Abigail whenever she accidentally bought something expensive and her credit card was declined. My family lived in a comfortable house in Santa Barbara. Outsiders still thought we were the perfect model family. Abigail, the middle sister, was the standout. With hundreds of thousands of followers on social media, she was an influencer who made vlogs about mental health and gratitude. She often quoted our mother, "In this family, Hannah is the roots. Abigail is the light the roots must nourish." I never objected. I thought if I was strong enough to shoulder everything, they would be all right. I thought that was good. I used to take pride in being the support. But there was one thing I didn't realize. When you are always the one absorbing every blow, people won't learn to stand on their own. They'll treat you as an essential part, but never the center. I remember that morning clearly. I was on the 9th floor of the office, preparing to present a restructuring plan for my father's company, something I had worked on tirelessly for 2 weeks. If this plan passed with the investors, my father would be refinanced and could keep the construction company in his name. I had prepared everything: the numbers, the HR strategy, the loans that needed to be restructured. I hadn't even slept more than 2 hours the night before, trying to polish a chart so it would be clearer. But when I stood up from my desk, a stabbing pain hit me like a knife twisting deep in my abdomen. I froze, my hand gripping the edge of the chair, cold sweat pouring down my neck. My assistant, Emily, rushed over. "Hannah, you're not okay. You look pale. Let me call an ambulance." I shook my head. "No, it's probably just something I ate. Let me finish the presentation. 10 more minutes." Emily didn't believe me, but I had learned how to calm other people's worries with a composed smile. I sat back down, opened my laptop, opened the plan file, trying to ignore the feeling as if something inside me was about to burst. I took a deep breath and typed a few lines of an email to send to the investors. Right then, my phone lit up with a call from my mother. I looked at the screen, though my hand was still shaking. "Hannah," my mother said, her voice urgent. "Can you transfer $5,000 to your father? He needs to pay a deposit to the tile supplier. They can't wait until next week." I swallowed hard, swallowing the pain, screaming in my belly at the same time. "I'll take care of it," I answered, automatically. "Abigail needs a little too," my mother continued. "She lost an ad on a big channel because of some music copyright issue. Poor thing. She cried all night. She's still going to the gala tonight, right? I asked, my hand still flipping through slides. Of course. It's an important opportunity to broaden her profile. There are media reps from major nonprofits. She needs sponsorship for a new podcast series. Mom hesitated. And you? Are you free to go with her? I closed my eyes for a few seconds. I'm not sure. I'm busy today. That's okay. You're always busy. The call ended. I put my phone away and forced a sad smile. Everything I did, every dollar I earned, seemed to be fuel for a vehicle that never stopped, a vehicle I wasn't even driving. The pain grew so intense I barely heard the knock at the door. Emily came back in, worry written all over her face. Hannah, I can't leave you like this. I called a cab. At least go to urgent care and get checked. I nodded. So I left the building, quietly, like I always did when I took on something no one else knew about. In the car, I texted my mother. I'm on my way to the clinic. The abdominal pain is severe. I didn't expect much, just the usual, be careful text. But nothing came back, not even the scene indicator. I tried calling my father. His line was busy. Abigail sent an automatic message. Hi, I'm preparing for a big night. Text me after 10. A few minutes later, lying curled in the waiting area of the urgent care, the doctor came in, a face taut with concern. We need to get you to Memorial Hospital right away. You're experiencing internal bleeding. It could be a ruptured ovarian cyst or another serious injury. I had no time to answer. Light swam in my vision. In that haze, I heard the last ring of a phone, and then everything went black. I don't know whose hands I was in then, or who was called to be my medical representative. All I know is that when I woke up, 89 seconds had passed, 89 seconds during which my heart stopped, my body went cold, and no one came. I woke with the sensation that my whole body had been drained of blood. My throat was sandpaper dry, my chest a strange hollow, and everything around me blurred under harsh white lights. I had no idea how long I had slept. Only the monitor beside my bed kept beeping steadily, proof that I was still alive. A young nurse walked in. Her badge read, Chloe RN. She bent to adjust the IV and offered a gentle smile. Welcome back, Hannah. I blinked a few times, my lips trying to form words that wouldn't come. Take your time, she reassured. You just went through major surgery. You're okay now. I shook my head slightly, so tired that even nodding felt like too much. You had severe internal bleeding from a ruptured ovarian cyst, Chloe explained. The surgery lasted nearly 5 hours. There was a time, your heart stopped. I froze, my eyes widening as I looked at her. How long? I whispered, my voice sounding like pebbles sliding across stone. 98, no, actually 89 seconds, precisely, she answered hesitantly. But we were able to bring you back in time. You're safe now. The doctor will come speak with you shortly. I swallowed dryly, tried to sit up, but my body wouldn't move. Chloe's words felt distant, like echoes, but one detail refused to leave my mind. When did I get to the hospital? I asked, still struggling. Around 5 p.m. yesterday. You were nearly completely unconscious when you arrived. We called all the emergency contacts. Someone named Abigail replied to an email and sent a medical authorization from her account. I turned away, staring at the wall. Inside, an unnamed feeling rose up. Not anger. Not pain. Just emptiness. Abigail. The name echoed in my head like the sound of a door slamming shut far away. My sister. The one who cries to mom over nasty comments online, who gets every comforting hug and every compliment. The one who has never had to go through anything alone because I was always there fixing things behind her. And now, while I lay on the operating table, Abigail stood on a brightly lit stage, holding the inspirational award amid thunderous applause. No one in my family was here. No one called back. No one asked if I was alive. Chloe gently set a phone on the bedside table. Your phone. I charged it up. I took it, my hand still trembling. The screen lit up with notifications, but not from my family. Just Instagram, A few work emails, a bank alert. I tapped the messages tab. No new messages from Mom. No messages from Dad. No messages from Abigail. I opened Instagram, almost by reflex. At the top of my feed was a photo tagging me at Hannah Miller tagged by @AbigailGrace. I tapped it. The photo came up. Mom in a black velvet evening gown, Dad in a perfectly tailored tux. In the center, Abigail in a shimmering gold dress, hair softly curled, the trophy in her hands, smiling as if the world revolved around her. The caption read, "Family is everything. I couldn't be here without the love and support of everyone. Number family first, number blessed." I scanned the timeline. The photo was posted at the exact time I was on the operating table. At the moment, my heart stopped. That exceeded anything I could have imagined. A chill spread from my chest, not from the surgery, but from something deeper and colder. I had never demanded they love me the way they loved Abigail, but I had believed that, at the edge between life and death, Mom would at least come, that Dad would at least call, that my sister would pause, just for a moment, to ask if I was still alive. "Did anyone come to the hospital?" I asked softly. Chloe hesitated. "No, ma'am. We left several messages. No one showed up." I nodded. It seemed like I had expected that answer. Still, hearing it said aloud was colder than I'd imagined. An hour later, Dr. Collins came in. He looked at me with the kind of solemn gaze you see in people who have watched too many fragile things fall apart. "Hannah, you were very lucky to survive," he said. I looked at him. "It's not luck," I replied. "It's just that I'm not done with my role yet." He frowned, but didn't press it. I knew men like him understood. Some people live not for themselves, but because responsibility was forced on them too early. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. "The person who signed the medical authorization, Abigail Grace Miller, sent a PDF at 6:12 p.m. last night. That is, during the ceremony. We verified the sending address came from her personal device. All the paperwork appears valid." I let out a dry, bitter laugh. Isn't that strange? Someone accepting an award on stage, who also manages to sign authorization papers for her sister's death. He didn't answer. He only handed me a copy of the authorization and left the room. I lay there, my incision still aching, holding the paper Abigail had signed remotely. No one asked how I was. No calls. Chloe came back, carrying a bag of medications. "One more thing," she hesitated. "Abigail called the hospital earlier. Not to ask how you were. She wanted to know if you could transfer some money to cover the gala's after-party costs. Apparently, there's an issue with the event company." I closed my eyes. I said nothing more. In that moment, there was no more pain, no more anger. Only one clear fact. The 89 seconds I had been dead were the only 89 seconds in 35 years when I was not the one holding everyone else up. And maybe, I thought, I should start living as if I were still in those 89 seconds. No more worrying for anyone but myself. I lay motionless on the cold white bed, fluorescent lights washing the ceiling like a soulless white wall. Every sensation felt heavy, as if I had just swum through some pitch-black ocean and finally broken the surface for air. But the chill didn't come from my body. It came from the growing emptiness inside me, from the things I had learned after waking, and from the absolute silence of those who should have been there. Dr. Collins returned that afternoon with test results, and the medical explanations I no longer really cared about. "You lost nearly 3 liters of blood," he said in that steady, report-like tone, though I sensed a pause in it. "Your heart stopped for about 89 seconds. Clinically, you were dead." I smiled. Not a happy smile, but the reflex of a mind that had just grasped a plain truth. "No one knew, did they?" I asked, my voice steadier now. He didn't answer immediately. He only nodded. "We placed 7 calls and sent 2 emails to the emergency contacts. No one came," he said. I turned toward the window, where the late afternoon light tried to slip through the white curtains. Outside, the sky was still blue. The city moved on, the world kept turning. But inside me, Something had stopped. Something had died, and no doctor could resuscitate it. After the doctor left, I reached for my phone again. My hand trembled as I opened Instagram. And there it was. At Abigail Grace tagged you in a photo. I tapped it. The image was from the gala. Lights glittering. Abigail standing on stage like she was bathed in halo light. Mom in the front row, clapping proudly. Dad smiling, satisfied, beside a major sponsor. Hundreds of congratulations in the comments. I read the caption. An unforgettable night. The Miller family is wonderful. Abigail deserves everything she's achieved. Number family pride, number she inspires. I stared at the screen. My eyes were so dry they wouldn't blink. I didn't feel pain or hurt anymore. Just a strange void, an irreversible realization. I had died, and their world remained perfect. If anything, it even shone brighter without me. My phone buzzed. A message from Abigail. Hey sis, hope you're recovering well. Quick thing, the gala after party had a few extra expenses. Can you transfer $3,000 to the usual card? Love ya. I let my phone drop as if it had fallen from a great height. I closed my eyes, and yet my mind felt clearer than ever. For 35 years, I carried the weight for everyone else. I was the one who stayed behind to clean up the shattered pieces others left behind. The one left out of every perfect family photo, but always there, arranging the background. I was the one paying the bills, keeping promises, managing crises, yet never once was I asked, "Are you okay?" Or even simply, "Do you need someone?" I started scrolling through the comments under the gala photos. People praised my mother as an inspiring woman. They called my father a pillar of endurance for the family. And Abigail, she was painted as a living symbol of selflessness. One comment stood out above the rest. I wish everyone could have a family like the Millers. I laughed. A hollow, dry laugh that echoed in the sterile hospital room. Chloe, my nurse, stepped in just as the sound slipped out. She stopped, startled. "Miss Hannah?" she asked softly, her voice carrying a trace of concern. "It's nothing," I told her. "Just a joke only I get." She didn't press. She placed a glass of water and a pain pill on the table beside me. "Would you like me to call anyone to visit?" she asked. I shook my head. "No one." She hesitated, then said quietly, "I read part of your file. The person who signed as your medical proxy, your sister, sent the documents from an unofficial email. The signature was just a scanned image, not a real signature. But administration accepted it because everything was so urgent." I closed my eyes. She knew I was lying between life and death, and still had the clarity to send documents by email during the gala dinner. Chloe said nothing more. But I felt her gaze linger on me, not pity, but a silent witness who understood. After she left, I opened the photo album on my phone. Hundreds of pictures from family vacations, holidays, birthdays, Abigail's endless events. Everyone smiling, radiant, whole. I was in almost none of them, because I was the one behind the camera. The one ordering the flowers, booking the cake, paying the bill, making sure everything stayed afloat. I tapped Select All. The screen asked, "Do you want to delete these 254 photos?" I pressed Delete. Not because I regretted what I had done, but because I didn't need proof of a role I was no longer playing. I stared at the ceiling, my chest hollow but oddly lighter. I had died. And no one knew. Maybe for the first time, I finally got to choose how to live. The next morning, a soft knock came at the door. I thought it was the nurse. But when the door opened, the sight made me sit up despite the ache in my stitches. "Jessica?" The name caught in my throat. She stood there in her familiar ash-gray sweater, holding a hot coffee and a paper bag from the little sandwich shop. It's near the office. Her pale blonde hair was tied in a messy bun, her face bare, carrying only the glow of concern I hadn't seen in years. "You scared me," she said, setting the bag down on the table. "I know you're stubborn, but I didn't think you'd collapse at the office." I managed a weak smile. "Sorry for ruining your weekend." "Cut it out," Jessica frowned. You covered a whole quarter's reports for me when I had the flu, and still dragged myself to work. If I didn't come now, what kind of person would I be? A laugh slipped out, and suddenly my eyes burned. For the first time since the surgery, I felt myself soften, not from pain, but because someone had come. Not out of duty, not out of expectation, just out of care. Jessica pulled a chair to my bedside and handed me the coffee. I begged the nurses to let me bring this in. I can't stand the hospital brew. I held the cup, its warmth flowing from my hands straight into my chest. Thank you, I whispered. We sat in silence for a while. I sipped, tasting a familiar comfort in the middle of chaos. You know, Jessica said, her eyes on my hand. The hospital gave me a copy of your medical proxy when I signed in. They thought I was family. I turned to her. And? She sighed. The signature was a scan, no original. The email was sent from an anonymous address, but I checked the IP, it came straight from your home network. I wasn't surprised. My chest simply sank, confirming what I had already suspected but had hoped to be wrong. Abigail, I murmured. Jessica nodded. Exactly 6:12 that evening, right in the middle of the gala. I even checked the live stream. That's when she was waiting for her name to be announced. I set the cup down, leaned back against the pillows, and said nothing. You suspected all along? Jessica asked. Even before I woke up, I replied. You know what's the saddest part? Not that she forged the papers, but that she did it so easily. Without a single pause, Jessica looked down, then carefully pulled a thick file from her bag. I brought this from your lawyer's office. They asked me to deliver it if you woke up. I took it. Inside were the trust documents from my grandmother. I'd known since college that my mother managed it. I had never touched it, never asked. She always told me, don't worry. It's just a backup for the family. I flipped through. Records of withdrawals. 10,000, 30,000, 70,000 during the year Abigail launched her Young Women Empowerment Seminar series. Page after page, not one signature was mine. I looked at Jessica. I never signed any of this. And you never spent a cent, she said firmly. I checked. Not a dollar went into your accounts. I closed the file, a tightness settling in my chest, not anger, but the weight of truth, too late. Last night, I said softly, when I was lying here alone, no calls, no messages, Abigail sent me one line, asking for 3,000 to cover the after-party bill. Jessica squeezed my hand. That's enough, Hannah. You don't need to prove anything anymore. I nodded. She was right. I didn't need more proof. I picked up my phone, opened my inbox, and typed in an address I still remembered. My family lawyer, Margaret Talbot. Subject: urgent. Request to revoke proxy rights. The body was short. Just 3 lines. I request that all access to the trust in the name of Hannah E. Miller be locked until further court decision. No one is authorized to represent me under any circumstances. From this day forward, I will work directly with attorney Margaret Talbot. I hit send. The little ping echoed from the phone, a small sound, but to me it felt like a lock clicking shut inside my mind. I didn't call my mother, didn't tell my father, didn't text Abigail. I just did the one thing I needed to do. Begin untying the knots that had bound me my whole life. Slowly, quietly, but without looking back, Jessica stayed beside me without another question. She opened the sandwich bag, split it in half, and placed one piece on my tray. One more thing, she said as I took the first bite. I changed the passwords for all your emails, bank accounts, and investments. Left the confirmation papers in your laptop bag. Everything can be moved fully private if you want. I didn't ask why she had done so much. I just looked at her and smiled faintly. You know, I said softly, this might be the first time I feel like I'm not carrying the whole world. Jessica nodded, her eyes gentler than anything I'd ever received from my own blood. And I think, she said, you don't need to carry anything anymore. I returned to my apartment on a bleak afternoon. The San Francisco sky was draped in a thin gray haze, just enough to keep the sunlight from slipping through. The windows. The ocean wind still blew steadily, but today, everything seemed colder. Jessica carried my bag from the hospital. As I stepped inside, the familiar scent and quiet of my home greeted me, but it no longer brought comfort. This place, once my refuge after long days at work, now felt like a stage, its curtains slowly lifting to reveal secrets I had ignored for years. "Sit down and rest," Jessica said, helping me prop my legs on the sofa and pouring me a glass of warm water. I nodded. Sitting in my favorite chair by the window, I exhaled deeply. The incision still ached, but physical pain was something I could endure. What weighed heavier was what waited inside my laptop. I opened it, my hand trembling slightly. A red notification appeared in my inbox. North Shore Bank, suspicious activity alert. I clicked it, and my heart froze as I read the first lines. Trust account number 4829XXX, belonging to client Hannah E. Miller, shows continuous withdrawals. From 2016 to present, totaling more than $180,000. Transactions executed by authorized agents, Mrs. Cynthia L. Miller and Mr. Theodore M. Miller. I said nothing. My eyes clung to the numbers, each transaction striking like a slap against the memory of a past I once believed was stable. I had trusted my parents to use that money to keep the family afloat. I never questioned it, believing they would always be honest. I turned to Jessica. "I never touched a single dollar of this." "I know," she said softly. I checked. Most of those withdrawals lined up with the times Abigail needed funding for her career. I remembered the sudden trips to Europe, the luxury handbags Abigail flaunted in her motivational videos, the times my father vaguely spoke of personal funds to pay off debts. I had never once thought they were draining the only inheritance my grandmother had left me, the grandmother who had first cradled me as a baby. How could they keep using such an old authorization? I asked. Jessica pulled up her computer, scrolling through documents. "This is the power of attorney you signed at 18, giving them control while you were in school. But once you graduated, it should have been revoked. They never filed the update. And the bank won't act unless you make an official request." I let out a bitter laugh. So all they had to do was stay silent, and the money kept flowing into their hands. Jessica nodded. I shifted, opening the hospital email Jessica had mentioned before. I hadn't had the strength to read it then, but now I knew I had to. Inside was a file titled Advanced Medical Directive, Emergency Authorization. The hospital name, logo, and dates were legitimate. My eyes trailed down to the signature block. Under Authorized Representative was written, Abigail Grace Miller. Next to it was an electronic signature, not mine. The final line made my blood run cold. In the event the patient cannot make decisions, the authorized representative holds full rights to direct emergency medical treatment, including the authority to terminate life-sustaining care. A chill spread through me. "Did you check the IP address?" I asked, though I already knew. Jessica rotated her screen toward me. Same IP as the one that sent the financial authorization scans, traced back to the family home network in Santa Barbara. I leaned back, eyes closing. So, if I had died on that table? Jessica waited, listening. Who would have received what remained of the trust? Closest living relative, she answered. That would mean Abigail. The silence that followed was suffocating. I didn't cry. I wasn't shocked anymore. Instead, clarity settled over me, sharp and cold. It felt as if I had witnessed my own death again, but it was the death of trust. Maybe I was wrong to think they needed me to hold this family together, I said quietly. The truth is, they only needed me as a stepping stone. Jessica said nothing. She simply stood, pulled a thin blanket from the closet, and draped it over my legs. What would you do if you were me? I asked. She looked at me for a long moment. I'd gather every piece of evidence, hand it all to the lawyer, and start rewriting everything from who has power of attorney to who you trust to stand beside you if you ever go into surgery again. I nodded, slow but firm. I used to think they'd change, that if I worked hard enough, they'd see me and be grateful. But maybe the ones who try the hardest aren't always the ones kept around. I opened a new email. To Margaret Talbot, Esquire subject, legal file update, urgent request. Message. Please verify all access to the inheritance trust, including past withdrawals and beneficiaries. Begin investigation into forged hospital and financial documents. I will visit your office Monday morning. I pressed send. Outside, rain began to fall, droplets sliding down the window pane as if washing away the dust of a past I was finally stepping out of. Inside me, there was no more pain, only a chilling clarity taking shape. I had been dead for 89 seconds. Perhaps the naive part of me hadn't come back with the heartbeat. 3 days after I sent the request, Margaret's office replied with a short subject line, all access locked. I opened the email, my eyes scanning the confirmation. The trust account was now under my sole control. My parents' access was void. Every past withdrawal was filed as evidence, ready for civil proceedings if I chose to press charges. I sat still before the screen. No joy, no triumph. Just a lightness like clearing out a room long buried in dust. That afternoon, my mother called. Her voice came through, soft with the polished tone she had always used in charity circles, but underneath was urgency. Hannah, we need to talk. Can we meet? I looked out the window at the sunlight settling gold over the rooftops. No. Silence. Then her voice quieter. We're in some trouble. The bank says our loan is due next week. Your father, he's not sleeping. The whole family is waiting for you. I closed my eyes. I waited too, remember? On the operating table. For 89 seconds, my heart stopped. No one came. Hannah. She softened. That night was different. You know it. Abigail was being honored. The whole family was watching the live stream. I let a bitter smile touch my lips. And you weren't watching your own daughter fight to live. She paused. But now you're back. You're healthy. Whatever went wrong is in the past. Right now, the family needs each other. I didn't answer. I set the phone down on the table, letting her voice drift into the air. Through the speaker, I still heard her pleading. Don't act like an outsider, Hannah. You're our blood. If you cut us off, then... I ended the call. No words. Just a simple, final click. The next afternoon, Abigail called. Her name lit up on the screen with a new profile picture. Her in the golden hour light, hair softly curled, gaze dreamy. I hesitated, then picked up. Hannah? Her voice was hoarse, as though she had been crying. I stayed silent. I know, things went too far. I didn't think you'd find out. I still said nothing. Please, the house is chaos. Mom isn't eating, Dad walks the halls all night. They need you. I need you. For what? I asked, calm as if asking about the weather. I don't know, she admitted. But if you disappear, everything will collapse. This family can't survive another blow. I glanced at her social media photo from 2 days ago, her smiling at an outdoor brunch beside a famous host. The caption, after every storm, there is always light at the end of the tunnel. She was dead, I said slowly, and the whole family still dressed up, took pictures, and gave speeches like nothing had happened. Hannah, I was lying there, heart stopped. While you were sending a fake authorization email from your phone to protect the ceremony? I was scared, Abigail whispered. I didn't know it would get that bad. No. I cut her off. You knew. You just chose to pretend you didn't care. She fell silent. Then the sobs broke out, unstoppable. I'm sorry. I heard her crying, but my heart didn't ache the way it used to. No more trembling, no more pity. Just a quiet space inside. What are you going to do? She asked. I closed my eyes. That's no longer for you to know. Then I hung up. That evening, I sat in my quiet kitchen, the yellow light spilling across the oak table. Jessica was packing food into containers to take home. You talked to them? She asked. I nodded. They're starting to feel the fire at their feet. Jessica sat, across from me. I bet your mother said something about family is forever? and that I'd destroy everything if I didn't help. She sighed. So what now? I pulled out the printed transactions Margaret had sent me. I'm taking this to the county office on Monday, filing a formal report for forgery and financial fraud. Jessica said nothing. She just looked at me for a long time. Are you okay? She asked. I nodded gently. I don't know if I'm happy, but I'm sure I won't let anyone live off my money, my work, or my life anymore. Outside, rain began to fall softly. A kind rain, not loud, but enough to wash away the fog that had clung to my mind for years. I stood up, pulled back the curtain, and looked out at the familiar street. Behind me was an old storm. Ahead was a battle I was ready to step into, but this time, I wasn't walking for anyone else. I was walking for myself. I left the old apartment on a foggy morning, the cool air making it easier to breathe among the memories still clinging to every shelf and drawer. Jessica drove, and I sat in the passenger's seat, holding a wooden box with the last things I chose to keep. A childhood photo album, a few birthday cards from my grandmother, and the first draft of the book I had just begun, 89 Seconds. We moved into a small apartment in Pacific Heights, with a balcony overlooking the bay and sunlight soft enough not to hurt my eyes in the afternoon. I rented a spare room as my writing space, hung white curtains, laid a beige rug, and placed a wooden desk by the window. A place quiet enough to start over, but not so silent it felt lonely. I changed my phone number, closed all my personal social media accounts, and resigned from my old job, the battlefield I had once used to prove myself to my parents, to show I was useful, worthy. I didn't need to prove that anymore. Instead, I accepted an offer to become a strategy coordinator for a county, a nonprofit that provides scholarships to rural girls. They didn't ask where I studied or what my old salary was. They only asked, "How do you want to help young women?" And I answered without wondering what my mother would think, or whether my father would approve. One evening, while sorting old electronics to donate to a women's support center, I found a small silver voice recorder, the one I used nearly 10 years ago as an assistant. I turned it on, expecting nothing. But one file appeared. Voice, note, 2008, M4A. I hesitated, then pressed play. My mother's voice echoed, distant yet chillingly clear. We never planned to keep her, but abortion at that time was too messy. Her grandmother begged him. I just wanted things quiet. The device slipped from my hand, clattering onto the wooden table, the sound cutting off. The room went unbearably silent. I sat there for a long time, staring at the wall, no tears, no words. I wasn't shocked. It was just the last missing piece falling into place. The next morning, I sent that recording to Margaret, just one line. Additional evidence. Motive behind the forged authorization and asset theft. Margaret called back soon after. She didn't ask questions. She only said, "I'll include this in the file, but you should keep a copy. Some wounds shouldn't be erased. They need to be faced." I nodded, though she couldn't see. She was right. That afternoon, I opened my laptop and began writing the first lines of the book. I died on the operating table for 89 seconds. Meanwhile, my family was posing for photos in Beverly Hills. No one called, no one came, and when I woke up, I knew I would never live for them again. I wrote as if breathing. Each sentence was a cut through the old wall I had built around myself. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I just wanted to tell it fully. Honestly, the story of a woman who once died unnoticed and then chose to live again in a different way. Jessica often brought hot tea at night while I edited the latest chapter. She'd sit nearby, reading or sometimes suggesting a detail for the draft. Some nights I stayed up late, not from haunting memories, but because I was carried by the flow of thought. I never imagined writing could make me feel so light. Once, when I was writing the part about lying in recovery, the pale light overhead, the monitor beeping softly, Jessica looked at me across the table and said, "If you hadn't woken up that day, the world would have lost a story that needed to be told." I looked at her, smiling faintly. It's not the world that needs this story, I said. I need it. I need to know my life isn't just pages someone else already wrote. I didn't know where the book would lead. I wasn't writing for fame nor for revenge. I was writing to understand myself, to prove to myself that after those 89 seconds of silence, there was still a life worth hearing. Every morning, I woke not to an alarm or a meeting schedule. I woke because I wanted to. I ate simple breakfasts, walked around the nearby park, and at night, I wrote. In that small room, sometimes the only sound was the wind through the window, yet I didn't feel lonely. Because after years of living as someone else's backdrop, I was now living inside my own story. The book launch was held at a small bookstore on the edge of the Mission District, where the afternoon light filtered through frosted windows and wind chimes tinkled on the door with every entry. No red carpet, no cameras, no crowded autograph lines, just an old wooden table, a few stacks of first prints, close friends, and a piece I never knew I needed. I wore a pale blue linen dress, no makeup, no jewelry. To others, I might have looked too plain for a personal book launch, but to me, it was a quiet statement. I didn't need to shine, I only needed to be real. Jessica stood beside me, always close enough to help with handshakes too firm or congratulations that made me choke up. She understood me in a way my family never did. Sometimes silence is the last line of defense. I was signing for an older reader. She held my hand and whispered, "You wrote the feelings I've hidden my whole life." When the door opened, I didn't turn around, but I saw Jessica freeze. And I knew. A voice came softly from behind, as if afraid to shatter the air. "Hannah, can I talk to you?" I set the pen down and lifted my head. Abigail stood there. No heavy makeup, no evening gown, no live stream phone in hand. Just a young woman, eyes swollen and face weary, as if carrying the weight of her own actions. No one spoke. The room was silent. Jessica squeezed my shoulder gently, then stepped back, leaving space between me and my sister, the one who had nearly turned my death into her stepping stone. "Can you step outside with me for a moment?" Abigail asked softly, clutching her purse straps as if afraid she might collapse. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, not with hatred, not with contempt, but with the gaze of someone who once hoped too much and had learned to survive without hope. I walked out onto the porch with her. A soft breeze carried the scent of jasmine from the tea shop across the street. The last sunlight of the day painted the old brick wall gold, like a gentle cover over its cracks. "Why are you here?" I asked, my voice neither cold nor sharp. Abigail stood still for a moment, then opened her bag and pulled out a stack of files. "Mom and Dad are under investigation. The prosecutor's office has issued a summons. The family's bank accounts have been frozen." I wasn't surprised. I only nodded slightly, as if I had known this all along, and in truth, I did. "You're the lead plaintiff in the case," Abigail continued, her voice beginning to shake. "If you withdraw, they might negotiate. Things won't go too far. Do you think—" I cut her off, my eyes locked on hers. "That you deserve forgiveness?" Abigail froze. Her eyes avoided mine, then slowly dropped, as if she was gathering every ounce of courage. "At first," she whispered, so low I had to lean closer to hear, "I only forged the signature because Mom said it was a small thing. She told me you'd never find out. But when you were in the hospital," the doctor called, and Mom turned off the phone. I panicked. I tightened my grip on the railing but said nothing. "Then they said," Abigail went on, "that if you didn't make it, I would inherit the trust fund." I didn't understand everything back then. I only knew I was scared, and they kept telling me I was grown up now, old enough to handle family matters. I let out a small laugh. Not bitter, just tired. "You didn't kill me," I said, "but you chose to stand by while I died." Abigail clutched the file tighter, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I know, I won't defend myself. I just hope you don't push them to the edge." "You're afraid they'll lose their honor?" I asked. She nodded. "And what about my honor?" When I was laid there like a pawn, sacrificed for the family's image? Did you ever think about that? Abigail stayed silent, her lips pressed together, trembling. I'm not saying this to torment you, I continued, but for you to understand, forgiveness isn't a price paid to sweep away consequences. It's a gift, and not everyone receives it. I turned to go back inside. Hannah, she called after me, her voice breaking. What will you write about me in that book? I paused for a second, then turned my head, looking straight into her tear-filled eyes. I'll write the truth. Then I opened the door and stepped inside, letting the breeze on the porch carry away all the sobs behind me. Inside me there was no anger, no expectation. Only a calmness that came from finally putting down a burden I had carried my entire life without ever being asked if I wanted to. A week after the book launch, I received a call from Margaret. We've officially received the indictment, she said firmly over the phone. Theodore and Cynthia Miller are charged with 3 counts: embezzlement, financial fraud, and falsifying legal documents. I sat quietly in my small office, the early morning light streaming through the frosted window. The wooden chair beneath me felt colder than usual, or maybe it was just me, cold from the inside. The preliminary hearing will be next month, Margaret went on. Unless they reach a deal with the prosecutor, otherwise, it'll make the papers. I don't oppose going public, I replied. Do you want to see them? Before. No. I cut her off. I don't need a humane curtain call for people who were willing to let me die. Margaret was silent for a moment. I understand. I hung up. No tears, no trembling, no relief. But no anger either. Just a quiet emptiness like closing the last door of a house that had already burned down, leaving nothing but blackened beams that still smelled of ash. The next day, Jessica came with a small gift box and set it on my desk. Don't laugh, she said, but I think you need something that has nothing to do with lawyers or paperwork. I opened it. Inside was a small cream-colored projector and a USB drive. What's this? A trial cut from the documentary team, she smiled. Remember? They bought the rights to adapt 89 seconds. I touched the projector, feeling as though I was brushing against a piece of my memory retold by someone else. That evening, we pulled the curtains, turned off the lights, and sat on the floor with 2 glasses of red wine. The film opened with a low female voice, soft but not cold. There are deaths that never make it into medical records. There are wounds that never bleed, and there are people who keep living even after being abandoned. Each interview, each diary entry reenacted. Every time the main character me lay on the hospital bed with the white light glaring down on a face no one held, it felt as though I was watching someone else. She's not there anymore, I whispered. Jessica turned to me. Who? Me, the girl in that scene. She nodded, asking nothing more. A week later, I received a letter from prison. The envelope was worn, the handwriting familiar, neat but drained of life. It was from my mother. I didn't open it right away. I left it on the table for 3 days, walking past it, glancing at it, then looking away. But on Wednesday morning, as I poured my coffee and saw the first sunlight spill across the kitchen, I knew I was ready. The letter was only 3 short paragraphs. Hannah, I'm sorry. I have no excuse worthy of forgiveness. I want to see you one last time. Not to ask for anything, just to look at you, with eyes no longer clouded by illusions. I folded the letter and set it back on the table. Inside me there was no resentment. Only one question echoed. Did I still need to see those faces to confirm that I had truly stepped beyond them? Margaret called that afternoon. They're requesting a direct meeting. Both of them. I'm not going to prison, I replied. They agreed to a video call. I thought for a moment. Then agreed. Not for them. For me. The video call took place in the lawyer's office. I wore a white blouse, my hair in a neat bun, no makeup. When the screen lit up with the faces of the 2 people I once called parents, I saw nothing but withered figures in prison uniforms, eyes stripped of arrogance, only the desolation of people finally dragged into the light after years of hiding in darkness. Hannah, my mother began, her eyes red. I raised my head, looking straight into the camera. I died, I said, my voice steady. The daughter you used like an ATM, a tool to preserve your image, is gone. My father was silent. My mother wept. I didn't stop. I'm not here to forgive. I'm not here to listen to explanations. I'm here to say, what you once did no longer controls my life. I spent nearly all of it begging to be recognized. I don't need that anymore. I looked into my mother's eyes, the same eyes that sparkled whenever Abigail was praised, but always dulled whenever I was sick or needed encouragement. I'll keep living, but not within the orbit you created, and I hope you spend the rest of your lives learning the worth of the loneliness you built for yourselves. I ended the call before hearing their response. That night I sat alone at my desk, the lamp casting light over an unfinished page. In my head, that old line echoed, "We never meant to keep her." I wrote one more sentence beneath the new chapter. There are children who were not born because they were wanted, but they still grow, and they learn how to want themselves. I don't know where the future will take me, but I know, where I stand now, no one is leading the way, and the miracle is, I don't need anyone to. The gallery opened on an autumn afternoon when a cool breeze rustled through rows of golden leaves outside the exhibition doors. I named the space Rebirth. Not a glamorous title, but a raw truth I wanted people to feel the moment they walked in. The first room was bathed in soft light, white walls lined with frames. Not vibrant landscapes or glowing portraits, but crumpled papers, hurried scribbles, sterile numbers, copies of forged signatures, erased hospital records, treatment bills I carried alone for years. Visitors stopped, reading line by line, their eyes darkening. Some covered their mouths, some bent low before a cold statement framed on the wall. No resuscitation needed. Patient has no family. Guarantee. I watched from a distance, strangers' faces, yet somehow full of empathy. Their expressions mirrored the pain I once carried. Only this time, instead of being buried, it was acknowledged. It was seen. In the second room, the light grew harsher, cold white like in an operating theater. On the walls hung photographs of the very room where my heart stopped. A worn surgical bed, dangling IV tubes, a yellowed corner wall. At the center, I placed a screen playing a reconstruction of those 89 seconds. No blood, just the flat, endless tone of a heart monitor, then the sudden return of a beat. The audience sat in silence. An older man folded his hands as if praying for a soul that had just returned. The last room warmed with light. On the wall hung only one photograph, a selfie I took in the hospital, right after waking. My face pale, eyes swollen, lips cracked, but a faint smile stretched across, thin as a line of chalk. Below it I wrote, "The day I was truly born. Again." When the exhibition officially began, journalists, colleagues, art lovers, and readers of 89 Seconds entered one by one. The air grew heavy with their slow steps and reddened eyes. A middle-aged woman approached me, clutching my hand as if we had known each other forever. "My daughter was in the hospital for 4 months," she whispered. "But unlike you, I was there every day. I can't imagine you going through that alone." I only nodded, squeezing her hand in return. Then it was time. I stepped onto a small platform under golden light. The room fell silent. I held the microphone, scanning unfamiliar but deeply moved faces. "I once died," I said. My voice carried, steady. For 89 seconds, my heart stopped. 89 seconds passed, and no one in my family knew. No one stood by me. Not a single prayer was said. The room froze. I drew a breath and continued. But those 89 seconds saved me. They didn't steal my life. They gave it back. Because from the moment I woke up, I no longer lived to please anyone. I no longer let others define my worth. I lived for myself, and for those who know that a human life is never unnecessary. I paused, feeling the weight of emotion ripple through the room. A few tears fell to the floor. A group of young students held each other's hands tightly, afraid of letting go. "This exhibition is not about pain," I continued. It is proof that even when the world abandons you, you can return, stand up, and rewrite your own definition. 89 seconds was death, but also the beginning of rebirth. When I bowed, applause erupted, not just as praise, but as confirmation that my journey was no longer a secret buried in silence. That night, after the guests left, I stayed alone in the empty room. The warm light still shone on the selfie. I stepped closer, staring into the pale eyes of the woman I once was. Quietly, I spoke aloud, as if sealing it one last time. 89 seconds didn't kill me. It gave me my life back. Standing in that quiet space, I realized something simple but profound. Each of us has our own 89 seconds. It might be the moment you collapse, are betrayed, abandoned, or stripped of faith. But what matters is not how long you stayed down, but how you chose to rise again. I share my story not to reopen wounds, but to remind us that life always offers a second chance to rewrite our fate. And now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced your own 89 seconds? A moment when you thought you had lost everything, only to discover it was the turning point that led you back to yourself? If you want to keep walking this journey with me, to hear and share more stories about family, about bonds, and about wounds that seem unhealable, follow this channel so you don't miss them. Because sometimes, within the broken pieces, we find the true strength to begin again.